Please proceed, Your Worship.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for your patience. It is 2:05. I'm here in council chambers. Members of council are coming to us variously from their home office areas, and staff are joining us either from their offices here at the Municipal Hall or elsewhere, or their home offices. I will call this meeting to order, and we will begin with a request to amend the agenda. It's moved by Mayor Ostrander and seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink that council amend the May 19th, 2020 council meeting to alter the order of business to add section 4 statutory public meetings to the agenda as pursuant to the Planning Act RSO 1990. Part 13, section 6, motions, notices of motions, and section 7, bylaws for execution. Is there any discussion for members of council? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
It's carried.
And so we will move to the approval of the agenda, and I will need a mover and a seconder, but the motion will read that council approve the May 19th, 2020 meeting agenda as amended.
So moved.
So it's moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Rowley. Is there any discussion?
No.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. I'll now ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. On the advice of the Integrity Commissioner, I'm declaring a pecuniary interest, which as written is insignificant and cannot reasonably be regarded to influence me in item 5.3 Economic Recovery Plan, insofar only as it relates to my employer, Miracle Inc. That said, again, on the advice of the Integrity Commissioner, I will continue to participate in the meeting at that stage unless that topic comes up, and then I will turn the chair over to the Deputy Mayor. We do have a statutory public meeting this afternoon, and I don't have a motion to go into the statutory public meeting, but I will need a motion to enter into the statutory public meeting. Councillor Bateman, is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Vink. It's a move by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink, that council proceed into the statutory public meeting at 2:08 p.m. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes,
Carried.
thank you. So we do have one item in a statutory public meeting this evening with regard to Part Lot 36, Concession 4, Part 1, Registered Plan 38R 602, 174 Donaldson Road. It is file number B01 2020. The owner is Gary Adams. The applicant is Tyler Freeman, and it is with regard to 3 consent applications. Mr. Ty, by what method and on what date was notice of these consent applications given?
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice of this consent application B012020 was sent by first-class prepaid mail on May 1st, 2020 to all property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. Notice was also circulated to the agencies as required under the Planning Act. In addition, a sign notice was also posted on the property.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. And would you please explain the background regarding these consent applications?
This consent application is requesting that a portion of the subject property be severed in order to create one new residential building lot. The severed and retained lands as proposed would provide for the following. The severed portion would maintain a road frontage of 164 feet with a lot size of 1.24 acres. The retained 594 feet of frontage, 32.12 acres. The severed portion would comfortably meet, if not exceed, the minimum provisions of the rural residential zone, subject to a rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. We would normally ask the owner or applicant if they have any comments, but I don't see that they've been able to join us for the Zoom meeting. And normally we would ask if there are persons present who have questions or comments, but of course we're not able to have people join us for the Zoom meeting for security purposes. But were there any comments brought forward prior to this meeting?
Through the chair, staff received no comments, save and except for the comments from agencies attached to our report, in addition to a letter from Lower Trent Region Conservation Authority, which was received subsequent to the submission of our report, which has been since circulated to council.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Is the clerk aware of any comments that have come forward? She's shaking her head no. Thank you, Candace. We got it. Are there questions or comments from members of council with regard to the consent? Seeing none. Again, we would normally ask for final comments from the owner or applicant, but they were unable to join us. Mr. Ty, do you have any final comments?
Through the chair, we received a letter from Lower Trent Conservation Authority recommending assurances that the proposed lot creation would be beyond or outside the minimum 30-meter buffer from the natural features. We've been able to confirm that in fact the lot is outside. As well, for the record, notice of any decision of council would be issued in accordance with regulation 14920, meaning regular notice provisions under the Planning Act, subject to a 20-day appeal.
Thank you. Does council wish to make a decision this afternoon on this consent and these consents?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Very well. So I will need a mover and a seconder, but the motion will read that this report regarding consent application B01-2020 as prepared by the municipal planning consultant be received, and that council of the municipality of Brighton grant provisional consent to application B01-2020, subject to the following conditions: that the severed lands be rezoned to the satisfaction of the municipality of Brighton, that the geospatial data with respect to the subject lands be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official, and that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey for each of the severed lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within 1 year of the granting of consent. Is there a mover?
So moved.
So moved.
I have it moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Tadman. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. And now we'll return to the regular meeting with a motion that we close the statutory public meeting and return to the regular meeting of council at 2:14 PM. Is there a mover?
I'll move it.
I have it moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Is there any discussion? All those, oh, sorry. Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Counselor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. So we now move into staff reports. Our first report is a planning report as prepared by Amanda Doherty and Daryl Ty. Mr. Ty, we've read the report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Your Worship, other than this report to council, albeit brief, follows the inaugural meeting of the affordable housing implementation workshop, which was formulated by the county following the release of a strategy or action plan, which actually the municipality received that plan back in November, I believe. And what they're anticipating or hopeful of is that the municipality will designate one individual who will meet regularly and otherwise follow this initiative through as the initiative gains momentum. So the municipality in the future, I believe, anticipate through the CAO will designate one person to represent the municipality consistently.
This would be a staff person, Mr. Ty?
That's correct.
Thank you. I suspect somewhere in early June we'll be able to do that.
Understood.
I'll ask council if they have any questions after we've read the motion. I'll need a mover and seconder, and the motion will read that council receives the report regarding the Affordable Housing Strategy Implementation Working Group for Information as prepared by the Municipal Planning Consultants. Is there a mover?
So moved.
Is there a seconder?
Seconded.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink and seconded by Councillor Rowley. Is there any discussion or questions? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes. When it comes to the definition of affordable housing, Your Honor, Your Mayor, I think we're a bit behind the times, because if you look at the houses that we're building, it's very hard to find a house under 300 to 400,000. So what is affordable? Are we being compared to the Golden Horseshoe of Toronto or Brighton? And then if we're going to have affordable housing, how can we add development charges to it? And I got an email from the Mayor Saunders from the county, which I haven't had a chance to distribute. But he says the people from the city can easily pay the development charges, and not too many people from the town of Brighton could pay those extra development charges. So is it sustainable housing we're looking for, or affordable housing? And is it for the residents coming to our city, to our town, or is it for the residents that live here? That's my question to you, Mayor.
Well, I believe that the affordable housing strategy is intended to answer those kinds of questions, to determine what affordable housing is and what it looks like.
So can I ask another question?
Is it a follow-up to that one?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So if it's to find out, is there any way that the county would defer the development charges until this committee meeting meets and decides what is considered affordable housing?
That would be up to county council.
Okay.
I can't speak for the majority of county council. I suppose perhaps if the majority of lower tier councils would be willing to defer their development charges at the same time, the county might consider that. But keep in mind that everyone collects development charges with the exception of the upper tier at the moment, with the exception of that one area in Coburg, which is currently being charged development charges for its development area. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Mr. Ty answered my question. My question was, would there be representation from Brighton? I wondered if it would be a council member, but as he just mentioned, it will probably be a staff member instead.
I believe that's the intention, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I'm glad to see this sort of thing coming forward. I don't think development charges are the issue. It's a matter of making sure that we have rental units. Right now, if you want to rent something in Brighton, it's almost impossible. It's about having semis and semi-detached and that sort of housing and making sure that happens. So I'm happy to see this report, and I'm happy to see us continue on with this, and so that we have a strategy for Brighton, because we really need it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. One more question. Would some of this housing be, once again, county subsidized or whatever? Are they looking at increasing some of the housing that the county looks after now?
Mr. Ty, did you get a sense of that when you were at the table?
Actually, the meeting was attended by Amanda, not myself. However, the initiative, I believe, on the part of the county is to encompass the development community more so than just subsidized housing that would otherwise be created through some level of government. I believe the enforcement or the policy direction, possibly through the official plan or the upper tier county official plan, will be to set thresholds that developers would then be required to either meet or account for why they're not meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Further questions from members of council? Councillor Bateman?
I guess it's a question and a comment. I agree with what the deputy mayor said, but I also understand what Councillor LeBlanc was saying as well, because there was correspondence on the development charges, the two do tie in, because the provincial government did have a provincial policy statement out on affordable housing, and with the announcement of the DC charges, the warden did say that that flies in the face of the provincial policy statement, and that's what Councillor LeBlanc was making reference to. And then reference was made that the people that move here from the GTA can afford those development charges. So this committee, like the deputy mayor said, will be a great thing, because maybe we can steer that and advocate for that, because you can't argue out of both sides. You have to have some affordable, and you can't keep adding charges and make them affordable.
Deputy Mayor?
I just want to add that as much as no one wants to pay development charges, those development charges are used to help us manage what needs to be done in our municipality or in our county. And so finding a balance there is difficult for sure. And keeping an eye on it is probably a good idea, but it's not that these development charges are going nowhere. There is a purpose for them. So I just want to just be careful that we're not trying to just throw out development charges and then we go to do our budgeting and find that, you know, these things that were covered by development charges, we now have to be find another way to finance. So, but again, you know, affordable housing, accessible housing, all things, issues that I think that it's important that we're looking at. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, when I talk about to you, deputy mayor, through the mayor to the deputy mayor, when I'm talking about development charges, I'm talking the ones that have been put on the county, onto Brighton, that don't exist yet other than one part of the county. I agreed that we need a lot of apartments and duplexes, but that also falls on council to basically to speed up the development and working with our planners and our developers to get lots and land ready for development. We got to work with that. The more we have, the cheaper the price will be.
Councillor Tadman, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mayor. I just was wondering, would there be a point in time as this group moves forward that we individually as councils throughout the lower tier would have some say in this, because it's us that hear the most about the demand for rentals and for affordable housing, not necessarily the planners. And I suppose that's who would sit on this committee. So is there any plans for that? And then maybe nobody knows that yet because they've only met once, but I was just wondering if there was any talk in that area.
Mr. Ty, are you able to speak to that?
I have no knowledge of that. I don't know whether that's been even contemplated at this point. As I indicated, the meeting was the inaugural meeting, only the kickoff.
Presumably, if the intent was to amend the official plan locally anyway, this council would be involved in that amendment process.
Yeah.
sorry, Mr. Ty, I'm sort of looking to you to,
Yes, Your Worship, that is in fact the case. I would also contemplate that the staff represented for the municipality would be, shall we say, well advised to undertake to fully understand the opinions, expectations of the members of council as well.
yeah, I think through, well, for Mr. Castleman, as the new planning staff come on board, we would want them to provide reports, ongoing reports to council with regard to the strategy so that we're aware of what's happening and can offer our political advice for, at least for this part of Northumberland County. Because I certainly agree with my friends who have some concerns about the westward focus of the politicians in the county, and the pressures that they have from Durham and the GTA are similar, but not the same as the pressures we have here in Brighton. So I think with respect to Warden Sanderson's comments, he is looking at primarily growth from outside of the community, whereas here in Brighton, we need to find that balance, that mix of people here or people coming in from the Quinte region, and of course people who are coming in from the Greater Toronto area. So there is that balance we need to have in Brighton, and I think it speaks more and more as we talk about that balance, creating an affordable housing strategy. So I'm certainly supportive of this moving forward as well. Is there anything further from members of council?
Sure.
Councillor Tadman?
Thanks again, Mayor. I think it was in the beginning of the last term, but it could have been the term even before that. And please help me, who was the warden that had to, he resigned because of health interests anyways. He started this whole, to get together as different communities to see what we could do, because there was such a shortage of affordable homes. And anyways, at that time, the mayor and one of the councillors sat on that, and also they brought in people like community care. So I don't necessarily feel totally confident that just certain people are sitting on a committee like this, because I don't think they bring the real needs of us individually as municipalities.
So as this moves forward, may I suggest that staff keep council in close contact with this, so that we can offer some advice back to the committee? Obviously, we're not striking the committee. We're just receiving information about the working group. Mr. Castleman?
Agreed.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything further from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc?
Through you, Your Honor. What I thought you were saying is that if this committee goes forward and then they would come back, the vote on accepting what the committee comes with, is it the vote of the county, or is it the vote of the 7 municipalities as they come back to the municipality?
I would anticipate, given the broad consultation, that it would be all 8 levels of government all 8 governments that would be voting, all 7 lower tiers and the county, to accept the affordable housing strategy. That would be my anticipation, but Mr. Ty, do you have any further information on that?
I would be inclined to concur with that assessment.
Thank you. Did anyone else have a comment before we go to the vote? Councillor Anderson.
I haven't heard much about, I think the strategy is going to be a little different than what it was when all of these meetings and all that, the launch took place. I think with that, with the pandemic coming to I won't say a close because we're a long way off, but as we come out of it, I think the focus is going to be a lot different on affordable housing. It's going to, if we want to take care of our own residents who may have to change their lifestyles or move into a different locale. And I think Councillor LeBlanc said it right. There's what is affordable in Brighton now for a Brighton resident or somebody coming from Eastern Ontario or Northern Ontario. Everything comes from the GTA or from that direction. And yes, they're probably, because they have equity somewhere, so they're able to pick up something here affordable to them. But I think it's going to be a real tough go on looking at strategy to accommodate today's people, today's situation, or tomorrow as we're looking at it. So I don't know if I'm clear on that, but I'm really concerned about that. And I think this committee that's being formed's got to really go in there both feet and look at that on one of their top priorities. How is it going to be structured, and how are the builders going to structure what they're doing to accommodate those, and rental is probably going to be the only, I'm not an expert, but the rentals may be the only option.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I think you raise a valid point, given the serious potentiality that we are already in or are about to be in a very significant economic downturn. It's probably a good time to be striking a group of this nature, because I think you're right. People are going to be in significant need in the next few months, and maybe a year or more ahead. So not to anticipate terrible or bad news, but we got to be looking forward as well. Anyone else before we call the vote? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. Our next staff report is also a planning report with regard to 140 Smith Street. Consent applications B23 2019, B24 2019, and B25 2019 deferred from January 15th, 2020 council meeting. Mr. Tai, we have read again through this report, and I would ask both if you have anything to add or highlight, but I'd also ask you to please go over the information provided to council by email from the applicant's planner, if you would, or if you're more comfortable with the clerk doing that, that's fine as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. These applications actually went to a statutory public meeting back on December the 9th, and this will represent the third report back to this council on these applications. What appears to has been happening is we're now getting into a cyclic pattern with respect to recycled information, if you will. There's been no real new information that would, upon our review, give pause to staff to perhaps change their opinion or their recommendation, including the information that we received late Friday afternoon, which I did send on to council first thing this morning. That being the case, I believe that if council agrees, it would be appropriate to deliberate and perhaps arrive at a decision on these applications, in all fairness to the applicants.
Thank you, Mr. Tai. So what about the information received from the applicant's planner?
The information received is what we've seen in the past, and that's what I refer to as cyclic. It's not new. Based on our review,
Daryl, I'm going to get you to go back and start from the word cyclic. It's not new, it's cyclic information, because we lost you.
Oh, it's cyclic information in that it hasn't really provided us anything new. We had requested information back in January, and additional information. What we received was not new information. It was what had been received in the past. And based on our assessment, ongoing assessments, our opinion hasn't changed on these applications. So I think I recommend, in all fairness to the applicant, that council make a decision on the application.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. So I'm going to read the motion and see if we have a mover and a seconder for that, and then we'll go from there. The motion reads that this report regarding consent applications B23 2019, B24 2019, and B25 2019, as prepared by the municipal planning consultants, be received, and that Council of the Municipality of Brighton deny consent applications B23 2019, B24 2019, and B25 2019 insofar as they fail to demonstrate conformity with the growth plan, official plans for each of the municipality of Brighton and the county of Northumberland, and fails to maintain consistency with the provincial policy statement, and otherwise do not demonstrate good land use planning. Is there a mover? It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rowley.
I will second that only to get the discussion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I will open the floor to discussion. Councillor Bateman.
I just had a question because the motion just reads to receive and deny. Typically, these give the option to accept and move forward as well. Because when we deferred this, in all fairness, unless I'm misremembering, we deferred it only to hear more information from Lower Trent. And we've received that information from Lower Trent. Lower Trent doesn't have any outstanding concerns that can't be easily rectified, and they were in support of it if they made the adjustments that were required. So if we only deferred it to hear from Lower Trent, I can't see why we're not having a motion where it says proceed and support.
So I will say if this motion fails, Councillor Bateman, we can put a motion on the floor to approve the
Okay.
consent applications.
Thank you.
Or, yeah, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Obviously, this is a tough decision. So we saw this on, I think it was December 9th, and then again on January 15th. And Daryl, what you're telling me is nothing has changed except for the Lower Trent. Have they, I guess what I'm wondering, have they worked with the Lower Trent? Just confirm for me that they're able to meet those requirements, I guess is the first question. And just reiterate, the big issue here is really the size of the lots. Is that correct? So I guess those two questions for Daryl to start off with.
Mr. Ty?
Through the chair, your worship, actually, when we tabled our report on December the 9th, we recommended the council defer making a decision with respect to the consent applications, thereby allowing the owner applicant an opportunity spending the submitted applications to reflect proposed lots being no greater than 2 acres. We were informed by the applicant by the maximum 2-acre size lots would be of no interest to them, and subject to any other information we received, we brought a report back on January the 15th. It was again the direction of council that we return on January the 15th with conditions of provisional consent in the event that council elected to approve the applications. Then those conditions would then be available for council to apply to the provisional consent. Those conditions are in the most current report. On page 3, under titled Conditions of Provisional Consent, which is what council had directed us to do. With respect to Lower Trent Conservation, in their latest comments, yes, the councillor is quite correct. They indicated that through different either minor variances or rezonings, their concerns could be, I'm going to say potentially satisfied, but I'm not speaking on behalf of Lower Trent. However, in the opinion of staff, the matter of a consent is not necessarily to rely on the successful process of rezoning. And we have not recommended that the municipality adopt Lower Trent's opinion on land use planning, which is the rezoning. That's their opinion. It's not our planning opinion.
Councilor LeBlanc? Your microphone, Doug. Still not, you're still muted. There you go.
Thank you. Little red dot, white dot page came up. Through you, Mayor, for Daryl. Daryl, if you and I worked on this for about a year, and I don't understand, I understand planning, but if we did 2-3 acre lots, then she could come back with rezoning and add the additional land to it, just like anybody else. But the thing is, the Lower Trent said through an EIS, environmental impact study, the concerns could be addressed. And that's what we were waiting for December 9th. That's why we deferred it, waiting for the Lower Trent. And Lower Trent has said, yes, they can do it. And this property is not part of the growth plan. If it was going to be part of the growth plan, we should have put it in when we were doing our planning. And it wasn't in that for the boundaries of the town. It's outside of the boundaries on the west side of Georgina, on east side of Georgina Street. It's for you, Daryl.
Mr. Ty?
Perhaps if I could respond for clarification. This property actually is within the growth plan, the provincial growth plan. However, it's not currently within the urban boundary of Brighton. However, through discussions involving the update to the official plan, the municipality through the county could very well be looking at an adjustment to the Brighton urban boundary within the next 3 to 4 or 5 years. That remains dependent on how quickly or not quickly the county proceeds with their amendments or updates to their official plan. Regarding Lower Trent, with all due respect, that was not our premises as the municipality's planners to express concerns. The concerns we expressed were parallel, if not as separate, from Lower Trent conservation, and they related to the oversized nature of these lots, the argument which is still outstanding, are they realistically viable for farming? Are they appropriate at this location? Will they block future expansion of the urban area? Those are the issues that remain outstanding that the applicant has not, in my opinion, satisfactorily addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Ty. Councilor Tadman?
Thank you, Mayor. I have supported this from the beginning and nothing has changed my mind, and I've gone through it several times. And the one point that I just want to make now, especially when we're going through this pandemic, it's very important that we are able to sustain ourselves sometimes, even as much as growing some gardens. And I remember at one point it was suggested that the family of Mrs. Grants were thinking of doing some kind of hobby farm or market gardening. And I cannot support reducing each one of those to 2. I think the best planning for this is 10 at this point. It can always be changed in the future if they so desire.
Thank you, Councilor LeBlanc. Your microphone, Doug.
Through you, Your Honor, to Daryl. When I read the reply back from Northumberland County, I didn't see any objection from Northumberland County had any objection to this at all. They're a planner. And also I would say that the lots are, I think they're 11 acres, not 10 that they're requesting. And I'm in favor of that because even Northumberland County doesn't put any objection to it when I read their letter, unless I missed something, or there's another letter that came in. If you can question there.
Through the chair, there was only one letter from Northumberland County, which was very high level. It didn't speak in any detail with respect to the appropriateness. The Northumberland County official plan does not provide that level of policy direction.
Thank you both. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I would wonder, regardless whether we deny or approve, what would be the risk with LPAT? Is that something the province could challenge at some point, seeing how it's part of that we would be going against their policy?
Mr. Ty.
The prospects of appeal can come from any direction. They can come from neighbors. They can come from the development community in Brighton. They can come from the county, if you will. They can come from the province, depending on, first of all, who might report any approval decision to the province, which honestly could be remote. Anybody can appeal. So it's not a case of who may appeal or who may not be aware. And you can appeal.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, to your honor for Elmer Rowley. I have read the Golden Horseshoe document that they make reference to this, and it's when I read it, it always makes reference to a densified area with densifying the population. So it's like a city document that's being applied into the rural area. And so I see where it would apply to our densified area, but not to our rural area. And so it has that point. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Emily.
Thank you, Doug. May I ask another question?
Why not?
This is more of a hypothetical question. Had these lots been severed without or previous to the provincial policy, would there be specifics in place for these folks then to, would that kind of restrict what they could do with them?
Through the chair, the first provincial policy statement came out in 2005. The world of land use planning has changed dramatically in the last 15 years. Honestly, although I did administer the 2005 PPS, I can't recall that provincial policy statement specifically speaking to this form of application.
Anyone else? Councillor Bateman. Your microphone, Mark.
My apologies. Not to blend two issues, but they're kind of linked, just so for a point of reference. We keep saying provincial policy statement, and I understand that and the growth plan and everything, but we have to keep in mind when we were talking earlier about Northumberland County possibly putting on a development charges and having affordable homes. The provincial policy statement was issued more homes, more choice by the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. And there was correspondence that was generated saying that they understand that that development charge could fly in the face of the provincial policy statement. So the connection is this could as well, but if we're not worried about one and at the county level, they weren't worried about it as per the email, then I don't see why we're worried about it on this.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, I hope my microphone is on, Mayor. Yeah, it is. I can see you smiling. Thank you. I did a lot of soul searching on this one. So I went back to our counselor's handbook and I read our counselor's handbook. And in there's a place that says that basically the council has a responsibility to do the things for the citizens of the town or the municipality of Brighton. And so I'm looking at the citizens that kept this town for generations and what their wishes were. So I had to go back to that book that gave me some guidance. So I've read quite a bit and soul searching on this one. It's not an easy decision. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. I hope you keep that book handy. Anyone else? Councillor Anderson.
I can appreciate Councillor LeBlanc reading the book, and that's exactly true. I think we're all here for that reason, and we're here to look out for the best interests of the residents of Brighton but we're also here individually, and we know a lot of them. And that makes it tougher when you know the people. But I'm going to make a point that we're also here to listen to our staff and listen to our professionals that we have put in place to come up with solutions to some of these. This is a tough, I think our deputy mayor made it very clear, this is a real tough decision. And we have to think about the future also of our community, and that's growth plans and everything else that we've been putting a lot of effort into this past year with studies and where we're going. We depend on the county. That's a challenge, as we hear every meeting. But I do believe we need to listen to our staff here, and we need to make decisions that are based on valid criteria and data. And you mentioned also, Mr. Tai, that there's numerous groups that will have an eye on this, even now and in the future. So we probably won't make the right decision whichever way we go, but it'll have to be the best decision we make for all residents, not just, some residents. So that's my opinion, and I'm going to vote that way.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Is there anyone else before I ask the clerk to call the vote? Madam Clerk, if we vote against denying this, is it acceptable then for someone else to put a motion on the floor to approve it?
It'd be no different than any other type of vote. So I would assume that would be.
I just want to be careful. Normally we wouldn't, after we pass one motion, we wouldn't put in a motion immediately on the floor. That was the exact opposite. But I think in this case, that might be appropriate.
Or you can amend the motion that's on the floor.
Well,
as well.
or we could withdraw the motion. That might be an easier way to do it. But right now, I'm going to ask you to call the vote.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
The vote will be for.
Well, I'll read the motion right now. And then I will ask the clerk to call the vote. So it's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that this report regarding consent applications B23, 24, and 25, 2019, as prepared by the Municipal Planning Consultants be received, and that Council of the Municipality of Brighton deny consent applications B23, 24, and 25, 2019, insofar as they fail to demonstrate conformity with the growth plan, official plans of each of the Municipality of Brighton and the County of Northumberland, and fails to maintain consistency with the provincial policy statement, and otherwise do not demonstrate good land use planning. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Okay. Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
No.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Your microphone, Doug.
No.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
No.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
No.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Motion has been defeated.
Thank you. So I will ask if there is a member who'd like to put a motion on the floor that we receive the report, but that council approves the consent applications with the conditions as listed on page 3 of Mr. Tai's report. And those are 6 conditions, and I will read them into the record.
So moved.
So seconded.
So it's moved by Councillor LeBlanc and seconded by the other way around. Moved by Councillor Tadman and seconded by Councillor LeBlanc that this report regarding consent applications B23 2019, B24 2019, and B25 2019, as prepared by the Municipal Planning Consultants, be received. and that the Council of the Municipality of Brighton approve consent applications B23 2019, B24 2019, and B25 19, subject to the following conditions: that the environmental impact study be updated to the satisfaction of the Lower Trent Conservation Authority if required, that the severed and retained parcels be rezoned to the satisfaction of the Municipality of Brighton, that geospatial data with respect to the subject lands be submitted to the satisfaction of the municipality, that cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $500 per lot be paid to the municipality, that all taxes on each of the severed and retained lots be in compliance with municipal requirements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official, and that 3 paper copies and a digital copy of a registrable survey for each of the severed lots and the appropriate deed transfer be prepared and deposited with the municipal clerk within the 1 year of the granting of consent. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
I was wondering if we could, and I don't know if we can do this, but I'm just going to throw it out there. Don't know if I'm asking correctly. If we could add another condition that these lots then be connected to our municipal services, water, wastewater, in case at some time there might be other expansion up that way. Instead of, are we allowed to add those conditions?
I think we can add any condition we want. I'm just not sure how viable a condition like that would be. So
Just asking.
I'd look to Mr. Ty, given that these lots are outside the urban boundary.
Through the chair, the official plan for Brighton stipulates that only lot creation, lot development within the urban area is to be connected to municipal services. Secondly, there's only water up that street, not sewer.
Did you not say earlier in your discussion that this is part of the built boundary?
No, it's part of the consideration for the future built boundary. The west side of Georgina Street is in the built boundary, but these lots are east of Georgina and are outside the built boundary.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Anderson?
This is how I understood it, that in the future, this would have been relatively easy to service those areas. But if they're now going to be this way, established this way, they probably won't be part of that urban, or it'll be a real challenge to make it that way.
Councillor Tadman?
There's lots of room on each one of those 3 lots for water and a septic tank, and I don't agree with Councillor Rowley that we need to add that to our.
I understand that there's lots, Councillor Tadman. I do understand that, and the cost is probably more significant to do both wells and septic. I was just wondering if it would just be convenient for the future. Thank you.
Yeah, and the other point I just want to make at this time is that was always rural area. The boundary line was where you're talking about, Mayor, now, and so that has been farmland for probably a century or more. I don't know how long. So I don't see any problem with going with what you've read so far.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
No.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc. Doug?
You're muted still, Doug.
He might have froze.
Looks like he froze.
Oh.
Oh, there he is. Doug, you're muted.
I'm sorry if I missed something.
I'm calling the
I
vote.
need better broadband up here.
So Councillor LeBlanc, I'm calling the vote. How do you vote? For or against? Councillor LeBlanc?
You're for.
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley.
Hello?
Yes.
Just wait.
We got you. Counselor Mary Tadman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink.
No.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
It's carried.
Thank you, everyone. Doug, we did record your vote as yes, just so you know, in case you missed that part. Our
Yes, I got disconnected. I'm sorry.
Our next report is with regard to economic recovery. Mr. Hagerman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I'll need a mover and a seconder that council receive the economic recovery plan for the municipality of Brighton as it pertains to COVID-19 for information, and the council approve the website policy as outlined herein. It's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Counselor Ron Anderson.
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman.
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc.
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley.
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink.
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Our next report is with regard to 2020 department work plans, first quarter report. Mr. Castleman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
The only highlights for council is as a result of the pandemic being declared, that's what has dominated staff in this community post middle of March. So much of our time, if not 90% of our time, has been spent in preparation and reaction to the declaration.
Thank you, Mr. Castleman. The motion will read that council approve the 2020 first quarter work plan report as depicted in Schedule 1. Is there a mover? Deputy Mayor Vink, is there a seconder? Councillor Rowley, is there any discussion? Deputy Mayor?
Sure. This is a kind of a question for this quarter, so I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that. But the CAO brought up that everyone has been focused on COVID and all the restrictions and that sort of thing, and things are starting to lift a little bit. And I'm just wondering, I don't know if this is an appropriate time just to ask them, you know, will we be opening our buildings? Will we be opening our parks? And he may be able to answer it, he may not be, but I know people are anxious about those things. So if he's able to give any info or if there's another spot for that, then that's okay too.
Perhaps I could tackle it right now if you like. Certainly what's on my mind is turning the corner and moving into stage 1 and eventually stage 2 and stage 3 of the recovery plan. So regular contact with the Northumberland CAOs, comparing notes, talking to the health unit, and trying to understand from a legal perspective what our responsibilities are. And we'll be working with our team of staff over the course of the next little bit to make sure that we're ready to reopen once we're allowed to do just that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. I was reading through this report. I'm just going to go to the page on planning and economic development. Item 4 on that particular page is development of a brownfield community development plan. So I'm assuming this is specific to brownfields. I'm wondering if we are going to kind of create a whole community development plan besides. Thank you.
Well, certainly part of Mr. Hagerman's original work plan for 2020 was to bring forward an initiative and a community improvement plan dealing with some of the brownfields that we have within this community, long-standing brownfield. Quite frankly, over the course of the last month or so, his direction has changed as a result of the pandemic. And my suggestion would be, instead of focusing on brownfields, we focus on economic recovery for this community and the various initiatives that he has in mind. And in due course, we'll get to the brownfield initiative. But for me, that's not a priority today.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. I don't see it as a priority either, but I was just wondering if at some point we would encompass a whole community development plan as, you know, there are a lot of initiatives that maybe this municipality could have taken advantage of at some point if we had one of those plans in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from members of council? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Chair, I agree with Elmi Rowley. A community development plan, which is part of our planning that we pass through this at the county now, which would actually look if there's any developers that want to develop large pieces of land in conjunction with the town and the municipality and our planner, like they're doing in Napanee, Belleville, Kingston, Brockville, that's presently going on now. And it's looking forward to how our municipality is going to look in large chunks of land. Put it that way. I agree with Elmer Rowley's point on that one. And if the CAO could answer, if that would be something we would bring a motion up to council, or is it something that the staff would be looking at, or do we have to bring a motion in front of council for it?
Mr. Castleman.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think the issue is a couple of different issues, and I don't want to confuse the point here, but certainly there's been some discussion in the past with respect to moving forward with the next stage of our official plan amendment and getting on with what I'll refer to as secondary planning to round out the municipal boundaries for Brighton. And that's something that we did not tackle for the 2020 budget process, but I would anticipate as we move forward with our new Director of Planning and Development, that'll be an initiative that comes forward in the normal course for 2021. Just on another issue, back to Councillor Rowley, who had mentioned different options. You know, we've talked about a community improvement plan for a brownfield initiative. Certainly there are community improvement plans for downtown rejuvenization renewal, and that's something that we will be looking at also.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? So Councillor Anderson, I saw your hand.
I find it interesting that we're having this discussion right after the last agenda item, but we're talking about growth, expanding our boundary, all those things we're discussing. And you're talking about acquiring the land, finding land. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Just making a statement.
Councillor
Community
LeBlanc.
improvement, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Through you, Mayor, for our CAO, are we looking at doing pre-development of projects? I know I asked this question just about at every council meeting that I can, so we can have shovel-ready projects, especially in a strategic plan and getting something done or pre-designed, because we do have money in the bank. Can we look at that this year?
Well, certainly, as you will recall, in 2020 budget, we have about $525,000 or so set aside for pre-engineering. And Mr. Parkinson had indicated to us, last month or so, that we had approximately half a dozen projects in the design stage that could be shovel ready in the not too distant future should additional funding come forward.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley, you had a comment?
I'll just talk to Councillor Anderson. The idea of a community development plan is a little bit different than a community improvement plan, which was what I was asking about.
Thank you. Anything else from members of council? Councillor Bateman.
I was just gonna, thank you, Mayor. Comment on the economic, I agree that's the way to go, economic recovery first, but I also don't want to minimize the need and the necessity to clean up the brownfields. I know they're not urgent now, they were urgent 5 years ago. So we can put them on the back burner as we recover, but we have to really clean some up because some are not only a long standing, but also an environmental hazard waiting to happen. We have some gas stations with the pumps and tanks still in the ground, right? So even though we're going to put them on the back burner, let's not forget about them.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Anything further? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote? Candace, your microphone.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Counselor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Brian Ostrander, or Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Okay, I know who I am. We're good. Our next report is with regard to the Brighton Auxiliary Rescue Unit request for financial assistance. Mr. Castleman, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Well, certainly the highlights of this report is that council was approached back in November with respect to a request from Baru for financial assistance to buy a new/used rescue boat. And that item got deferred over into January and February. I've certainly had some discussions with the representatives of Baru over the course of the last month or so to understand very clearly what their needs are. And in a nutshell, they're looking at acquiring a new /used rescue boat that is in existence right now. And their fundraising goal is about $200,000 or so. The $200,000 will allow them to purchase the rescue boat and fully equip it such that it would be ready to go. So a $200,000 fundraising goal, they've raised about they raised about 75,000 or so. So they came to us back last year and asked us for $125,000 in funding. They've outlined 3 different options for our consideration. And looked at that closely, tried to get an update with respect to what their fundraising was on an ongoing basis over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. And had some discussions with our finance director with respect to the success or perhaps lack of success that we've had within this community as it relates to loaning money to different organizations. So the recommendation that we would have, if council chose to provide funding for this venture, is to provide a grant in the amount sufficient to allow them to purchase the rescue vessel. So the purchase price is $145,000 or so. They have 75 in the bank, and that would require an additional $70,000 to acquire the boat. As you will recall, we've received some correspondence from the representatives of Baru late after the issuance of my report on Friday, suggesting that what they would require in order to purchase the boat, including necessary closing costs, would be $80,000 versus the $70,000. The recommendation number 1, if council wants to provide funding for this project, staff would recommend that it be limited to the amount of funds through a grant to acquire the rescue boat, and then allow Baru to continue on with their fundraising in order to what I'll call fit out the boat and get it operational for 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Castleman, but your actual recommendation is simply to receive the report and take no action. Is that correct?
That's exactly, it's a non-budgeted item. So as you know, in 2020, we have no money in the budget. So any funding that you'd have to get out of some type of reserve.
Very well. So let me read the motion and see if there's any takers here. That council received the CAO report dated May 19th, 2020. Baru's request for financial assistance as information. Is there a mover?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. In the past, we have financially assisted them annually through our budget process. How much was that? I think it was fairly minimal. And my second question was, if this is a grant, means there's no repayment, right?
So through your worship, the first question is we've provided them with free mooring at our marina to the tune of about $1,000 or so. And secondly, a grant is not repayable.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, Mayor, for the CAO. So if we're just receiving this and we vote yes, that means we're not giving them the grant.
That is correct.
Okay. I would like to see that they get their $80,000. How would I do that, Mayor?
You could either propose an amendment to the motion, which might be the best way to go, or you could, if the mover and seconder were willing to put a friendly amendment on their current motion, then that also could be a possibility. But I'd like to have some more discussion before we go down that road, but I'm going to make a note to come back to you, Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. As we know, we cannot put a price on a life. And it used to be in the past that the commercial fishermen did a lot of the rescuing. That fishing industry is almost dead, and there's not the people around. And I definitely think that this is a worthy cause, and I would support an amendment here. The only one thing I was wondering about is the present boat worth any amount of money that could reduce this? And also, maybe you could help me, Mary. I think you and I were there when they refitted the boat. So I would think that most of what is in this boat would be able to move into the new one. Do you recall that?
I don't recall. In a conversation with the members of this organization when I was introducing them to Mr. Castleman, there was some suggestion that some stuff could move over, but there would be a lot of new stuff required.
Okay.
They've had the current vessel for quite some time, and as
Yeah,
you can
I know.
imagine, technology has
Right. And
overtaken everyone.
did you understand in talking to them if this boat is equipped with some of the equipment that they need, or do they have to have a whole new refit?
So my understanding is the current boat is a former firefighting vessel.
Okay.
So they would need almost a complete retrofit of tech and equipment to make it a rescue vessel.
And what about the boat they have now? Does it have a market value of any importance?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Mr. Castleman, do you know the answer to that question?
Well, I would suggest it has some residual value. I wouldn't anticipate it be very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Just a few things. First of all, I would love to see this happen. I'm just not sure that it's appropriate for us to grant 70,000. We just finished going through a budget process where we dickered over, a few $1,000s, and this isn't about saving lives. There are other organizations. They will still operate, and there is, I believe, they are not the only ones who save people. We shouldn't put that on ourselves because that's actually too much for us. I don't like it when we go there because that's way too much for us to have to put on ourselves. Because otherwise we'd be saying yes to everything. But we do have to weigh it out, and we don't have this budgeted. And we just finished having a very difficult budget deliberations where we talk about percents, and this will add, this technically would add about 1%. And so I would like to just know, perhaps I can hear from the Director of Finance, how, where this money would come from, because it has to be either it's paid by the taxpayers or it's paid by reserves. And I'd just like to know the impact. And perhaps the CAO can let me know, just so we're all clear, who is out there when someone is in a precarious situation out on the water? What are the options for people, so we kind of know? Like I said, I support this. I want to see this happen. I know they're doing good work, but I just think the amount is a lot, and this year might be difficult.
Thank you. So I'm going to go over to you, Madam Treasurer, to answer the question about where, what magic pot of money would we find $70,000?
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that grants and aid are usually around $1,000 for this group, in addition to the slip. This year it was just the slip. So you are all aware that we have a large infrastructure deficit, and that we're trying to build our capital budgets up a little bit each year. Staff also recommend to council to place money in reserves for future capital expenditures. That's how we build those reserves. And so if we're looking at pulling some money out of a reserve, you're taking away maybe from some departmental infrastructure of the future. That's number one. Number two, I did discuss with the CAO the success that we've had in the past with loaning to other organizations, and the success rate has been very poor. And I can only think of maybe 3 or 4 projects, but it's been poor. So my recommendation to him was not to extend a loan to another organization, because we may end up footing the bill in the end. But it may be worthwhile to go down that route, rather than go to the grant road at the first kick. That's my opinion. So I'll pass it back over to you, Mayor Ostrin.
Thank you. Mr. Castleman, there was a question about who goes out there, or what options are available if someone finds himself at risk in the water.
Well, I'm going to do a bit of a tag team here. I'm going to call upon our fire chief also, but my recollection, if someone is in distress, they have a couple of different options. They certainly have the Coast Guard that will respond. They have fellow boaters that will respond. We have the Baru group that will respond also. And if I missed anybody, Rick, please jump in. Obviously, you can talk a little bit about what the firefighters can do and cannot do with respect to shore-based or water-based rescue.
Chief?
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. Yeah, so we have, and as CEO Castleman has said, we do have the Coast Guard that are based in Coburg as our closest other option to folks that it would be on the water. Baru, of course, is available during the summer months. We work collectively with, or collaboratively with, Baru, in that our firefighters and the training that we do allows us to make entry into the water. They cannot. They simply go out to where they are and pull them back in or pluck them out of the water, but they can't get in and into the water. So that's where we come in with them. We do have some ability to move off of the shore, but to make to any distance really limits what our ability is in that respect. So that's where we rely on Baru. We also rely on private boaters to assist as well. So there are other options out there indeed.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Is this a request of a timely nature? I mean, I know one of our other reports today is, a financial report as to where we are and where we need to be. There's some strengths and weaknesses there as well. Do they need to know this, like I said, is this something that we need to deal with today? Can it be deferred to another time after we have some discussion around what our financial situation is?
Mr. Castleman?
So my understanding is that they've had their eye on and have been negotiating for this particular rescue boat. And up until a short period of time ago, there was no other interest in the boat. Now there is another interest, and they're concerned that if they don't move now, they will lose the opportunity and be faced with trying to purchase some other vessel, which may be more expensive.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes. Mayor, to the chair of the whole, which would be the deputy mayor. When we had our meeting for the meeting of the whole, this came up and they wanted 125,000. We were looking at the 125,000, but we deferred it to staff, which was the CAO, to do a report and come back to us with what the needs were. And then we would make a decision on that. It looks like the CAO has did his report, did his study, talked to the people, and he's come back at 70, then they needed an additional 10. So to me, I look at it like this is part of the meeting that we deferred from the meeting of the whole for budgeting on this at that time, which is the 80,000 that they require now. And that's where I go from my memory and my notes, because I went back to my notes for the meetings of the whole that we had written, and this had been deferred then to the CAO and to come back with a report, which I think this is the report he came back with.
Deputy Mayor, care to respond?
Thank you. Very clear on the process, and you are correct. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is our budget. Our budgeting is done, and we have not budgeted these funds. We are responsible for our budget. So we are adding 70,000 to our budget or 80,000 to our budget. And that's what we need to be aware of. We can't just say willy-nilly because the budgeting is done. Oh, well, we'll add another 70 or 80. It's not the correct way to go about it. And that's my only concern. So I would like to suggest that we not maybe grant 70, but we look at a combination. If it's 80 that's needed, a combination of a grant and a loan. I would like to see us go down the loan road and trust that they will be able to repay it over a certain period of time. And I would love to see if any other members of council are interested in doing that, and we can change the motion in that manner. We can talk about amounts.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to Councillor Bateman.
I just wanted to clarify, because I think Councillor LeBlanc mentioned it, because it is 80,000. It was the 70 plus the 10. But this motion is just to support the fact that they need it. And we're talking about timelines to buy the boat. So if we're really worried about the timelines to buy the boat, then we need a motion that indicates, yes, we're going to give them 80,000, or we're going to go down the route that the deputy mayor mentioned. Because currently the motion on the floor is just to acknowledge they need $80,000.
So just to be clear, and I'm going to go over to Councillor Anderson, but just to be clear, the motion on the floor is to receive the report for information, and then nothing else would ever happen. It would go away, which means the CAO would call up Baru and say, Council received your report for information. Sorry, they chose not to go down the road of providing any funds. So I just want to be clear about what happens if we pass the motion as is. Councillor Anderson.
I'd like to agree with Deputy Mayor. We shouldn't be dipping into residents' funds for this. This is something that's it should be handled either through our fire department. If we're going to put the money towards it, it goes into our fire department. It goes into the residents' department for us to share. I would go with a loan. A loan, I know, and we have a bad record with loans, but I don't believe this group would be that type of group. I don't know where their future revenue or funds would ever come from to pay that loan. But that's their business. If they're receptive to a loan, then and they have the means, they can show that they'll have the means to pay that loan back in a reasonable, whatever the term will be. I could see that, but if not, it should be something that's under the control of our fire department. Other fire departments have boats. If we're going to get into the $80,000 worth of funds here, it's almost going to be an asset then, versus using taxpayers' money out of a reserve that might be something that we might want to use towards our strategic plan items that we've got there, that they'll just be held off longer now if we take money out of a reserve for that. So I would vote today to support a loan. And if they want to get on with getting their boat, and they would meet the requirements for that. If not, I think we need to, show them support somehow, but it won't be by giving out money out of reserves.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Tadman, and then I'm going to go to Councillor LeBlanc after that to have a discussion about perhaps amending the motion, because I promised I'd do that. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. First thing, more than anything else, I represent each resident first and foremost for their health and safety. And this is a health and safety issue. I personally lost a brother in a drowning, and it bothers me immensely if we're not protected when people are out on the water. And a storm comes up pretty quick, and I've seen them many times go out in very difficult weather to help a sailboat that's been grounded through the winds or whatever. My other point in all this, as I look around at other municipalities, we have this mental thing that we have to have brand new shiny trucks all the time. I would suggest next year, let's not buy a new truck and at least look after the health and safety of our residents. So I certainly will support. The more I think about it, I would support what the Deputy Mayor is saying and go half and half with this.
Councillor LeBlanc, you were proposing an amendment to the motion, and I'd like to hear what that is, and I'll ask the mover and seconder then if they would be interested in proceeding that route.
Yes, and I totally respect what the Deputy Mayor said, and I agree with her. Partial grant, partial loan, what the amounts are, I'll let Council and Finance do. I don't want to see this report that the CAO did go to waste, and we need the health and safety. I would like to have a motion that we do some type of funding to secure this boat before we lose it. Because if you read what they've done every year, they're saving 6 to 8 lives from turnovers and boats and stuff and other essential stuff. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
I hope that helps you.
Well, a little bit. Councillor Anderson, it's your motion. So I'm going to ask if instead of receive the report as information, that we say receive the report for request for financial assistance. And you had mentioned you may have an interest in providing a loan.
That's correct.
Would you want to provide a loan for the? Sorry, sir, go ahead.
I think the initial ask was for what, 70,000?
Yes.
It's been all over the place, but I would say we would offer the loan for 70,000, and the term can, our CEO and Finance can would be appropriate. It takes time for them. We should make it as easy as we can on them to pay it back. But I believe we should do something to and it sounds like they would be receptive to that from all the information that I've got, that they could get on with it and get going with their boat. But I do not want to see, and being a health and safety issue, seems like we have a lot of health and safety issues, and we've got some pretty major ones going on right now. So I think we need to think of this boat as something separate item. All of that. This is an asset that needs to be purchased by a group that we do not operate. So let's help them out. Let's give them some fair arrangement on a loan to get their job done. So I would change it to accept giving a loan for 70,000 or whatever that first number was.
Just to be clear, they need 80 to secure the boat. So if I change the motion to read and further that council authorize a loan of $80,000 and direct the CAO to negotiate the terms, would that work for you, Councillor Anderson, as the mover?
I'd like to see them. I want to make sure it's not on the heels of the taxpayers. So yes, that sounds like that could work.
Councillor Bateman, would you accept that as the seconder?
I would. Can I ask a couple questions just for clarification though?
Sure.
I'm in favor of this and I'd like to have the Director of Finance weigh in whether you could write something in there that there's an option, if they're showing good faith and making their payments, and at some point, since, some are willing to do a grant, that you can have it forgivable at some point. But should we also not reach out to them, because we're talking about 70,000, they may need an additional 10,000 and they'll have to continue to fundraise, to outfit the boat. Should we not go to them and say, we're going to offer a loan? Because if you're going to, strap them for loan payments and they're still going to be fundraising, we might be setting ourselves up to fail. As the Director of Finance already indicated, we haven't had great success. So,
sure. So by directing the CAO to negotiate the terms, what we're doing is, what we would be doing if we pass this motion, would be authorizing the amount of the loan. And if during the conversation, Mr. Castleman comes to the conclusion, or Baru comes to the conclusion that this isn't going to work as a loan, then Mr. Castleman will come back to council and let us know that the loan would not be going through. And we're simply authorizing the amount of money if we pass the motion. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I don't want to see us going back and forth, like negotiating and then having to come back. It's so hard for us to meet right now as it is. And I'm going to make a suggestion that it's 70,000. We heard for the loan, we heard clearly they actually need 80. We received that correspondence. So, and a $10,000 grant. And I would like to see the loan. And I'm just throwing this all out there. Maybe it's a friendly amendment. I don't know if we have a motion technically on the floor. That we offer it as a very low interest or interest-free loan. The idea is that we're getting the money back though over a period of 5 to 10 years or something like that, so that we're not, yes, we're going to pay a little interest or lose a little interest on money that we have, but it's much more minimal than just giving them the money. So that would be my suggestion. That's what I'm kind of thinking. And I'd really like to see us make a decision on this today. We have it's been sitting here for a little while since budget time. So I would like us to be able just to move forward with it. Those are my thoughts.
So the only thing I'm going to say on interest rates is we're not allowed to borrow from ourselves interest-free. So I wouldn't want to go down the road of providing an interest-free loan to someone else, but maybe the treasurer could chime in on that.
So when we loan to ourselves, we pay it back at the interest rate that we would have received in the bank, which is quite low, around 1.25%. So council may consider setting up terms like that. And I was just going to look up what you had left in your grants and aid from this year. But I think that 10,000 sounds like a fair grant in this case. Bearing in mind that you have a $20,000 maximum on your grants and aid on an annual basis. So there may be some ability to work in some forgiveness based on grants too. That's just my thought on that.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Linda. That's what I wanted to know too. If we couldn't do it this year out of this year's budget, can we carry it over to the grant portion, which the deputy has said. I think I agree with that $10,000 grant portion, but come out of a budget that's there this year. If not, maybe come out of next year's budget if that's can be done. So if we put those two things together, then the loan at the low interest rate and over whatever term is reasonable for everybody, and I think I'd be happy with that, and I hope Councillor Bateman will too.
So can I read what I think you're trying to get across, Councillor Anderson, and I'll see if Councillor Bateman's still willing to second the motion. The council received the CAO report dated May 19th, 2020, re Beru's request for financial assistance, and further that council authorize a loan of $70,000 and a grant of $10,000 and direct the CAO to negotiate the terms of the loan. Does that
Correct.
sound about right to you, Councillor Anderson?
Correct.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman, are you still willing to second this?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? No being a perfectly legitimate answer. Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, your mayor. To Councillor Anderson, if we're just going to lend them the 70,000 and they got 70,000 in the bank with a grant, that's basically just going to give them enough money to buy the boat to make sure that they have it. I was looking, maybe if we're going to do a loan, why not lend them 100,000, and that way they have sufficient money left over to buy the boat and to start making some of the payments, because you don't want to leave them cash strapped with fundraising during a virus time in some of the grants.
So can I speak?
You may.
Okay, Councillor, you said it yourself. Mr. Castleman had brought his report back. It stated the terms that they're looking for and the extra $10,000. I think we've addressed all of that. They are going to continue fundraising, and I think they'll do with a good campaign going, I think it could be a good time that the fundraising is going to be used probably to pay the terms of the loan anyhow. They can't stop fundraising, and they're not a group that will anyhow. I know them that way. So I think we will satisfy them, and again, I think it's clear that if it's not acceptable to them, they won't accept it. So I think between Mr. Castleman and between what we're talking about here, I think everybody should be happy, and let's see where it goes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm happy to see it at 70,000 and plus the 10, and that should get them going. We can't just keep throwing in. We need to know what the 70 plus the 10 is what's been presented to us, so I'm comfortable with that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman.
Yeah.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
No.
Deputy Mayor Laura Link,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
It's carried.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Our next report is with regard to Surface Treatment Contract 2020. Mr. Parkinson, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. The motion will read that council award the surface treatment contract to Greenwood Paving Limited in the amount of $448,718.40 plus HST. Is there a mover? It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rowley. I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Chair, for Preston. Where you got the contract for almost 450,000 or 15% contingency. Does the county have any part of this? And does this contractor carry insurance?
Through you, Your Worship. No, this is strictly a private contractor, Canadian owned. They're out of Perth. They've been in the surface treating game a couple of decades anyways. I've personally worked with them in the past in the summers of 07 and 08. And yes, so they have insurance, they have WSIB. We do a holdback, a percentage holdback for warranty work in the spring. And they have all the equipment necessary to perform the work in a timely fashion.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Bateman.
Just for clarification, either for Preston or Councillor LeBlanc, when we're talking about insurance, are we talking about insurance on their work or the fact that they're insured like every other business through WSIB and stuff? Are we talking their work quality insured, or is it something else? I just want for clarification.
Right. So I think both of those questions may have been answered. Obviously, they're insured for regular liability and WSIB, as mentioned by Mr. Parkinson. And also the municipality would keep a holdback for warranty purposes. So we're talking insurance versus warranty, I think, is the difference in terminology here. But I think the answer to both of those questions is yes and sort of yes, because we keep money back for that warranty purpose. Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair, for Mr. Parkinson. Do they carry a performance bond on the quality of their work? And do they have two? I remember in the past, you and I talked, and you said that they should have two trucks for applying the tar, so we don't end up with the same way that the county resurfacing goes on.
Through you, your worship. They actually have a fleet of trucks, but how many they bring on site really isn't up to us. They'll probably have at least two so that they can keep their production going, because it's a production-based company. And they have all the rollers necessary and all the spray trucks, everything to perform the work.
Go ahead, Councillor LeBlanc.
You didn't answer the question if they have a performance bond. And also I have a third question, which is the 7-year plan you set up on resurfacing our roads. Is this going to complete our plan for this year, for that 7-year plan you presented last year?
Okay, so for the performance bond portion of that question, that's going to be our percentage holdback that we hold till next year when the spring clears and we see what the product's left after the first winter. So we hold that in cash in our bank account till next year. So that's our securities for their performance. And as far as the 7-year plan goes, if you refer to the report, there's a section in there where I recommend not surface treating Pinewood School Road this year. Because as we know, Northumberland County has the bridge on that road that they need to reconstruct in the very near future because it's in pretty bad shape. And I don't want to surface treat our road only to have it destroyed by their construction. So I'd like to hold off on that. I want to pulverize it, completely prep the road with new road base and ditches and everything this year so that it's ready for the surface treatment in the near future. But that's the only road that isn't in this plan currently.
Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Preston, to you. How many how many companies did we have respond to the RFP? Not that I need to know that. And was this company the lowest bidder or in the middle? Thank you.
Through you, your worship. It was issued as an RFP. It was a joint RFP with numerous municipalities, with Trent Hill leading the issuing and kind of being the project manager on this. And we received 2 bids on the RFP. The other one was slightly cheaper, but in the scoring process for the RFP, they had missing information and incomplete information. So their score was quite low, and it didn't warrant awarding to the lower bidder. So that's why we went with this bidder, because they scored the highest.
Thank you, Preston.
Councillor Bateman.
I just wanted to get clarification. Preston, you said you've worked with these guys before and that you had great experience with them? The road surfacer, sorry?
Through your worship. Yes, that's correct. A couple of seasons I worked with them.
All right, perfect.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, also when it came to Pine Ridge School Road, that bridge, do you have any idea when that bridge is going to be done? I know we talked about it in the first year of council, who owns it and when it's going to be done. But when I was there this weekend, there's only one sign that says the load restriction on it. And if you're only going to pulverize that, that's good. The neighbors would quite be happy to get rid of all the potholes because they all came to see what I was doing on the bridge when I was taking my pictures. So when that bridge is going to be fixed?
I do not, and I emailed the county a couple of weeks ago requesting that information, and I haven't had a response as of yet.
One more question.
Go ahead.
You put in that you're going to do all the culverts for the drainage and you're going to use our staff. Is that with the rubber tired hi-ho? And is that one of the reasons we're getting such great savings on all these roads?
Yes, we are going to utilize our equipment. We currently have a rented unit out there because we haven't received our unit just yet. But yeah, so we're going to do all the prep work ourselves, and all the culverts that need to be replaced will be replaced prior to surface treatment.
Councillor
So
LeBlanc.
is that the unit that I saw on Old Willow Road with the pulverizer parked there? Is that the rental unit and the pulverizer? Because they were parked this weekend on Old Willow Road, where you
Okay,
did some of the
okay.
dredging.
Okay, we're gonna back up. I'm not gonna get you to answer that question, Mr. Parkinson, because it's not germane to the conversation about whether or not we contract Greenwood paving for surface treatment.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. That was going to be my comment. We were getting way off topic, and really all we're deciding is on this contract. So I'd like to stay on topic.
Thank you. So are there any other questions or comments with regard to the awarding of surface treatment contract to Greenwood paving? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes, get it done.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes.
and it's carried.
Our next topic is 5.7, the Presqu'île Yacht Club Discharge Agreement. It's been prepared by Mr. McGee. Who's going to speak to that? Mr. Castleman? Do you have anything to add or highlight on that?
I don't have a highlight. Either Preston or Candace can speak to it.
Preston, you go ahead, please.
Thank you, Candace.
You're welcome.
Through you, your worship. As everybody knows, they submitted a letter to council. Council's provided us direction, and this report and agreement just merely follows that direction.
Thank you. So the motion will read that council received the staff report dated May 19th, 2020, being an amendment to Schedule A of Bylaw 2017-641, Presqu'île Yacht Club Discharge Agreement, and further that council approves the execution of the amending Schedule A of Bylaw 2017-641, an agreement between the municipality of Brighton and Presqu'île Yacht Club to discharge hauled sewage into the municipal sanitary system. I'll need a mover.
So moved.
And seconder. So it's moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Bateman. I'll open the floor for discussion. Anyone? Councillor
Sure.
Tadman.
Just very briefly, we have done this in the past and we've had no problems. So I think it's a no-brainer that we accept this again.
Thank you. Anyone else? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes.
it's carried.
Thank you. Our next report is the 2020 financial risks to COVID-19. Madam Treasurer, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
So the motion will read that council receives the 2020 financial risks due to COVID-19 report as information. Is there a mover
So moved.
and a seconder?
I'll second it.
So it's moved by Councillor Tadman and seconded by Councillor Anderson. I'll open the floor for discussion. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Just a question for Ben. I believe we have not yet applied for the accommodation study. Is that going to happen soon?
You mean a grant for that? Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, the grant.
Well, there's a couple, I guess, pre-COVID, there's a couple different grant opportunities that we did look to explore. One being Trillium. The project ended up not being eligible for a Trillium grant. So really, we're left to probably the Tourism Development Fund grant, which is a constant intake. To be quite honest, I've been sidetracked. It is quite an extensive grant application that I definitely will be applying for. But to be honest, since about March 12th or 13th, whenever kind of our lives changed, I haven't done much else other than work on COVID and work on economic development, other kind of priorities. So I understand this is a priority, but we're kind of limited as to what this project is eligible for. And I've just kind of been sidetracked for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Anyone else? Councillor Bateman?
I think it was the last meeting or the one before that when we were talking about the risks and stuff. Maybe Director Miller could speak to it. Have we canceled everything out? I think we were, when it was on the last meeting or whichever one it was, we were talking about weddings and stuff that were booked. So how far out have we canceled? I don't think we, when Mr. Miller spoke at that time, we had canceled weddings and stuff at the community center. It was a wait and see. So has that action been taken?
Mr. Miller?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, a lot of the weddings and whatnot have taken care of themselves. They've, it's a big enough event, obviously, in people's lives that they have a little bit of uncertainty. So they've changed wedding dates. A couple of them have went to the fall. A couple of them have actually moved their weddings to next year. Most of our other events for the summer are our seniors groups. They usually meet once a month, and they've canceled for this foreseeable future, as well as pickleball and all our sports outside. All the ball has been canceled. Men's soccer league is canceled. Minor soccer hasn't at this point because they've already done their registration, but they're sitting tight. We're basically at the mercy of the province because right now everything's closed.
But officially, we've canceled everything through the end of July.
And for our facilities?
Yeah. Officially, we've canceled all events and everything through the end of July. That was by council.
All of our municipal events.
Yeah.
Yes.
And municipally supported events. Yeah.
Yes.
Councillor LeBlanc, did I see a hand?
No,
Thank you.
I'm just agreeing with you.
Very well. Councillor Bateman.
I just wanted to clarify because I get the updates. You still have involved with minor hockey course and the other ones. I do believe minor baseball and minor soccer has officially pulled the plug on their season, so they will not be coming back this summer.
Thank you.
You might want to reach out to them just for peace of mind.
Councillor Anderson.
Last week, I think it was, or the province was talking about tennis courts were now allowed to be open and skateboard park. Now, because they're on public property or municipal property, I guess that wouldn't qualify as maybe they're talking about private clubs or that type of thing, but it'd be something to look into. It was stated, it's in the news that tennis courts and skateboard parks would be open.
Individual outdoor sports.
Yeah, it might be applied to a private enterprises or something and not municipal, but there might be something I'm just saying we don't want to miss things that we aren't getting clear information on. And I don't know if there's enough information coming down. And we got caught on a couple, and I'm not bringing it up for any reason, but we got caught on the boat launches and the marinas and things like that. We didn't know about these things until the day before or something. So, and it looks like other communities may have got information because they were jumping the gun. So I just, maybe it's something we need to be looking at, and when the opportunities are there that we can open things up ourselves, but safely, we should be there too.
Sometime when we can get together within 6 feet, I'll have a conversation about muddled communications, but that's not today. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. And those muddled communications are coming from other levels of government. We're not talking about within our organization. Correct. I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah. I just wanted to, the bottom line of this report is that we're experiencing a loss in revenue, but staff has worked hard to balance that out with a loss of expenditures as well. And I'm thankful for that. I know it's not easy and it's not ideal, and we'll probably have to figure out what we're going to do about this all next year again, because we're putting some things off. But I think it's a difficult time for everyone. And it's really important for our community to know that we're taking this seriously and that we're trying to cut costs as well, because there's a lot of businesses and there's a lot of individuals out there who are really having a hard time right now. And I think it's important that they know that we're doing what we can as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for the work you put into this, because I know it can be a hand-wringing exercise when you're trying to figure out what to move, what to cut, what not to do. So on behalf of council, we appreciate the information you're bringing forward. Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, there was one line, I believe it was Mayor for CAO. On the one line, there was positions that weren't being filled for a tune of 300,000. Could he clarify which positions aren't being filled?
Mr. Councilman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my preference would be to have an in-camera discussion with respect to the $340,000 that is being deferred in staff costs. I think it wouldn't be fair to have a public debate about that.
Mr. Castleman, would you be willing to put a report together for the first meeting in June for an in-camera, for a closed session discussion with council on that particular line item, please?
You bet.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Bateman.
I apologize. I don't want to labor this conversation. I just wanted to make one point. There's two distinct things that we're looking at when we're talking about lost revenue, when we're talking, whether it be the soccer field, the arena and stuff. There's the recreational side of stuff that the municipality and the province, once they say you can open, they control. And then there's the other things like minor hockey, minor soccer, minor baseball. Regardless of what the province and the municipality says, we're still governed, they're still governed by a body, and we don't go, they don't go until they say. So I guess the point is we're going to see this well into next year, because the calls and the conversations I've had from the hockey side, it's going to look much different. We have no idea what it's going to look like. And I think that's going to be prevalent for all organized sports that's governed by another body. So this isn't going to be over for the lost revenue for those venues, by no means for the organized stuff.
Thank you. And just as a quick reminder on reopening things, it's often that you may reopen. So if at any point we feel that we're not ready, either from an operational point of view or from a health and safety point of view, I would hope that staff wouldn't jump the gun before we feel as an organization we're ready to go, regardless of what we may do. So I know, for example, that our Quinty friends were opening boat launches well in advance of the official word coming down. They were told that they could, that it was a municipal, it was okay for them to do. We were told we shouldn't go ahead until we had the official word, and certainly across Northumberland County and the Rice Lake mayors on the north shore of Rice Lake were saying the same thing, and we all decided to go when the premier sort of surprised us with his announcement that day. So like I've been saying the whole time, it's fluid, and so we have to be prepared to react. What we don't want to do is to react too soon or to overreact on any situation. So, any other discussion on the report before us? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. So we now move into motions and notices of motion. This motion I'm going to read is to change our procedural bylaw to add some things to these agendas. I think as we get our feet underneath us, we're able to add things, and we're certainly recognizing that something should have been there. And if we're going to combine land use planning meetings with regular council meetings, we need to add some certain things. So it will be moved by myself, Mayor Ostrander, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Vink, that council suspend the rules of procedure bylaw 126, 2018, subsection 4.2, regular meeting schedule of council, and 4.3 council planning meetings to alter the order of business for the month of June to allow for combined meetings for June 1st and June 15th, and further, the council amend the procedural, pardon me, the council amend the rules of procedures bylaw 126, 2018 to include subsection 12.1J, the order of day shall have preference during the scheduled council meeting during a period of time of a declared emergency or pandemic, save and except that the chair may change the order at any time during the meeting. The business of council shall be taken up in the following order. 1, call of order. 2, approval of agenda. 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest. 4, announcements. 5, motions and notices of motion. 6, statutory public meetings. 7, staff reports. 8, roundtable discussion. 9, confirmation bylaw. And 10, adjournment. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
We move into bylaws, and our first bylaw will read that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to execute an agreement between the municipality of Brighton and the Presqu'île Yacht Club for hauled sewage from boat holding tanks to be discharged into the municipal sanitary system. Is there a mover? Councillor Bateman. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Vink. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
And our next bylaw is with regard to the procedural bylaw, and it will read that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to amend the procedure bylaw number 126, 2018, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the corporation of the municipality of Brighton council meetings. Is there a mover? I have it moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Rowley. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Link,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Now we'll move into roundtable discussion. First item on the roundtable is one that I've asked to bring forward. I've asked for two to be brought forward. The first is artistic ambassador. This was a concept we saw in the minutes of the Community Events and Civic Awards Committee. I had a chat with the chair of the Community Events Committee just to ask where they had gone with this. And my understanding, it was the hope of the committee to name the first artistic ambassador. They were planning to name a poet laureate in advance of Canada Day so that the poet could have a poem ready for the Canada Day celebration. So I'm seeking permission from council to move forward with that post of artistic ambassador, specifically poet laureate. A name has been presented to me. This person has been in touch and involved with the poet laureate in Cobourg. Cobourg's been doing some really interesting work during COVID virtually with their poet laureate and engaging students. And the person that I've sent around, I've told council about, has an interest in proceeding in that direction as well. So I guess I would ask first if there's an interest that we put a motion on the floor to name a poet laureate in the municipality of Brighton. Either we can do it by authorizing me to do so, or if you want to specifically name the person that I've channeled around, he's okay with that. I just want you to know that he would be fine if we named that person as well. So council, what's the wish? Councilor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and as you say, you've spoken with the chair, and I know there was some discussion, although nothing was ever brought to fruition with the Community Events Committee. But I would certainly be in favor of having that, and it would be nice if we could have something to add to our virtual event, something a little different. So I would think, and something like a poet laureate for this year might be appropriate.
Deputy Mayor?
I think it's a good addition, and it's nice for us to continue on with some of these things, even with everything going on. So I'm in favor of us, whether we name the person or not, it doesn't matter to me, but whatever is most appropriate, I guess, is what I'm interested in.
So as I say, I leave it up to council. If we don't want to name the person in a public meeting, you could authorize me to, and then I would make it public based on the information I've provided to council in an email. I think it was this morning. So either we can read that council approves the appointment of poet laureate and authorize the mayor to appoint a poet laureate for the municipality, or that council appoints and then we name the person poet laureate. So what's your preference, council? Go ahead, Councilor Tadman.
Mayor, I think I would go ahead and name that person. I was trying to think of someone else, since this year we're focusing on a poet laureate. So I would support your recommendation for that. But that wouldn't necessarily mean every year it would be a poet.
Right. So I think the intention of the committee was to name a different artist for a different ambassadorial program, but for the duration of the council term. So the intent would be to name the poet laureate for the duration of this council term, and then next year they would name something else. I don't know, an artist in residence or some other sort of artistic ambassador. That's my understanding from my conversation with the chair. So the motion will read that council appoints Richard Grove as poet laureate for the municipality of Brighton. Is there a mover?
I will so move.
Thank
I
you.
will move.
So I've got Councillor Rowley as the mover and Councillor LeBlanc as the seconder. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you, everyone. The next one is Canada Day funding. We don't anticipate it's going to cost a lot of money, and obviously we just saw a report that shows some of the risks and where some of the monies would come from for that risks, especially since we've shut down most of our events. But there may be some cost for the virtual Canada Day event. Particularly, there may be some costs for artists to who are looking for some sort of per diem. Understanding that artists, singers and songwriters have been hit pretty hard during this pandemic. So I'm looking for, and I think the library is looking for, authorization to recover those expenses or to have those expenses paid through the Community Events and Civic Awards budget.
I would move that we go forward with that, Mayor, especially because there's not going to be any events other than this.
So
Second.
thank you, Councillor Anderson. So it's moved by Councillor Tadman and seconded by Councillor Anderson that Council authorize expenditures for the virtual Canada Day event be covered by the Community Events and Civic Awards Committee budget. And I'll just make sure the treasurer is comfortable with that wording.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Could you just tell me who it was moved and seconded by again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Tadman moved, Councillor Anderson seconded.
Thank you. Counselor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Counselor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Counselor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you. The next portion is a piece of correspondence from the town of Grimsby, Commercial Rent Assistance Program. And so I'll need a motion that council either endorses or receives the resolution from the town of Grimsby regarding Commercial Rent Assistance Program. Deputy Mayor?
I'd like to endorse and create our own motion. Of course, it has some of their wording for their municipality and their town, but I think it would be good for us to show that we support this rent relief as well for our local businesses.
I'd like
Yep.
to second that.
Okay, so it's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink and seconded by Councillor Rowley that council endorse the resolution from the town of Grimsby regarding Commercial Rent Assistance Program. Now, Deputy Mayor, you said putting our own words around that. What do you have in mind?
Well, I'm just, it talks about the town of Grimsby a number of times through here. I just want to make sure that we're updating it to the municipality of Brighton. That's how I'd like to see it done.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So would we have a motion come forward to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. So the clerk will bring forward a motion to the next meeting that has all of this information with the municipality of Brighton's name on it so that people know that we are fully in favor of it, not just endorsing somebody else's correspondence, essentially. Thank you for that. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Was there a level of support there? I didn't, Councillor or Deputy Mayor, was there a level of support in that letter? I don't have.
It's in your package.
Yeah, so it says, I'll read it. Essentially, it's 100% forgiveness to small businesses. That's the long and the short of it. It's, of course, a fairly wordy resolution, but what it comes down to is a request that the federal and provincial governments create a commercial rent forgiveness program that provides rent relief at 100% for those who need it.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc, are you just moving your iPad or are you looking to speak?
No, it's slipping on me.
There you go.
My fault. Sorry about that.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
All right, so now we'll go around the table, and the table is as I see you on the screen for staff, and I will end with you, CAO, but we'll start with Mr. Miller. Do you have anything to add?
Well, basically, I think we discussed a lot of it. We're waiting for what the province says as far as facilities and infrastructure that we're able to open. I know there was another announcement this afternoon, and I think there's a few more facilities that are allowed to open up. So I'll have to obviously look at that. A lot of the problem is right now, municipal parks and parkland are closed, but they're opening up infrastructure inside it. So I need to get clarification on that, especially somewhere like King Edward Park. But boat launches are open. The marina got a Bay Street. We're looking to get the docks in and everything operational there by the end of next week. Again, it's the high water limit that's kind of setting us back a bit, but it's about the same as Quinny West and Belleville. They're both looking at having their marinas open and operational by June 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any questions for Mr. Miller from members of council? Chief Caddick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not much to report. We continue to look at our response criteria and protocols almost on a daily basis as situation changes, but we continue on status quo and has had minimal staffing effect on us at this point.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief? Madam Clerk?
Everything here is pretty much status quo. We'll keep going with our virtual meetings until we have our facilities opened up and people can come back, but we'll just keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you. Any questions for the clerk? Madam Treasurer?
Everything in finances, status quo as well.
Any questions for the treasurer? We saw a pretty detailed report from her, so. Thank you. Mr. Hagerman?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
I don't know whether you guys are afraid or smart. Any questions for Mr. Hagerman? Mr. Parkinson? Your microphone, you're on mute, Preston.
Thank you. Sorry, Your Worship. As the CIO already stated, we're turning our minds to the reopening process. So we're trying to put measures in place that respect social distancing. We're putting barriers in the office, such as the glass between the public members and staff. We're adding some walls and some doors to provide some further barriers. We've created a couple of more offices to separate people from shared offices. We're trying to eliminate door handles where possible and just go with the push-pull. doors and maybe just keeping ones open that aren't fire barriers and that sort of thing. We're adding a large screen and camera system into the meeting room at Sharp Road to further support, the online and GoTo and Zoom meetings with outside parties as well as within our own groups of the municipality to try to keep the meeting size down even into the future. Yeah, and lots of sanitizer around the building and masks for anybody who needs them. And that's everything for now.
Thank you. Any questions for the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure? Councillor Bateman.
Just a tongue-in-cheek request, if I could. Preston, would you please call Councillor LeBlanc the moment that Delaware Tire Hi-Ho arrives in Brighton, please?
Yes. Yes, please do.
Thank you.
All of council will be notified when it arrives. How's that?
Mr. LeBlanc first.
As long as Councillor LeBlanc's name is first on the list.
There you go.
Mr. Poole, anything to add? You're on mute, Scott.
Busy as heck. As Preston mentioned, we're making modifications to buildings to COVID. The YMCA project, the showers, is going full steam. It should be done within 2 weeks. It's going well. And our GIS staff is up and running now, the summer students. And our development service tech has also started. So it's going well.
Thank you. Thank you all. Any questions for Mr. Poole? Mr. Castleman, anything to add?
Really nothing to add than we've already discussed today.
Right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Castleman before we move on? Okay, so we have no in-camera session this afternoon. We move to the confirmatory bylaw, and I'll need a mover that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on May 19th, 2020.
I will.
That's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Bateman. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Yes.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Councillor Mary Tadman,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander.
Yes.
Carried.
All right, thank you all. That leads us to adjournment. I appreciate the discussion we had today. I think it helped inform a lot of good decisions. So it is 4:27 p.m. and I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.